I ain't nervous. Okay, I swear to God I ain't nervous. I swear to God I ain't nervous. I swear to God I ain't nervous. I got her working, twerking and slurping my serpent. Hey, I swear to God I ain't nervous. Hey, I swear to God I ain't nervous.
Checking in from Honor and Ron.
Hi, Lenore. We can see you right away.
Okay, me.
So how are you doing today?
Not so good, I think.
Don't worry, we'll check you out. Let's take your heartbeat and your reflexes.
Okay.
Okay. Your reflexes. Hey, well,
Is everything fine?
oh, your reflexes are great. You see, during the reflex arc, the brain is bypassed and sensory neuron synapse straight to the spinal cord, which results in a reflex action. It consists of 5 general components: the receptor for the stimulus, sensory neuron transmitting afferent impulses to the CNS, control center within the CNS, motor neurons transmitting efferent impulses away from the CNS, and effector, which responds to the afferent impulses with the specific motor response.
Good morning, Lenore. How are you today?
Oh no!
What my patient is experiencing is called a sympathetic nervous response. When a body is faced with a stressful or possibly harmful situation, it prepares itself for either fight or flight. In the case of a medical disaster, the body prepares for fight. The heartbeat rises to increase the blood flow. The bronchi of the lungs dilate to allow for more oxygen flow. The liver converts glycogen to glucose for energy. Digestion stops, and the pupils dilate.
Are you okay? Lenore.
Yeah, I'm just fine. I just thought that Dr. DeAngelis would say there's something wrong with me, but I'm good.
Are you sure you're okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm just a little scared.
Now that Lenore has recognized that there is no threat to her well-being, her body will begin to relax with the aid of the all-magical nervous system. This relaxation process is known as the parasympathetic response. This is ultimately the reverse of the sympathetic nervous response. Heartbeat will slow, the bronchi of the lungs will constrict, the liver stabilizes, digestion restarts, and the pupils relax.
Okay, Lenore, let me check you out for a sec. I think you're all okay. Your neurons were just a little crazy today, but you shouldn't pass out again. That shouldn't happen.
Okay, let's just hope for the best.
I'll show you out. So you should come back and see me next week, just in case.
Okay, I'll make an appointment
Okay.
then.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye. Hi, can I see Dr. DeAngelis? I'm here for my checkup.
1 second.
Great, you can follow me.
This way. Just wait here for her to be in shortly.
Thank you.
Good morning, Lenore. How are you today?
Hi, good, how are you?
Good to see you again.
I was just doing some research and I found out that the nervous system is broken into 2 parts, the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. The CNS consists of the brain and the spinal cord.
Deep breath.
It receives sensory,
Wait, one more. Good.
it receives sensory
What?
information.
One more. Thank you. Very good.
Yeah, so it receives sensory information from the PNS and sends out signals to the PNS to direct muscle movement. The PNS is essentially the rest of the nervous system minus the brain and the spinal cord.
Yep.
The nervous system consists
Wait,
of
deep
nerve.
breath.
The nervous system consists of nerve bundles that lead from the brain into every part of the body. A nerve is a combination of a neuron and a glial cell that provides its nutrients. Neurons are the basic building blocks of the nervous system. These specialized cells are responsible for receiving and transmitting information. Each part of the neuron plays a role in the communication of information throughout the body. So dendrites are tree-like extensions at the beginning of a neuron that help increase the surface area of the cell body and are covered with synapses. They receive information from other neurons and transmit electrical stimulation to the soma.
Oh, did you know that the dendrites receive the signal, passes to the soma, which then gets passed down the axon terminal to the next neuron?
A nerve impulse is an electrical current that travels along the neuron. When a neuron is at rest, there is a charge difference maintained between the inside and the outside of the cell. The inside is negative, containing potassium, and the outside is positive, containing sodium. This is known as the resting potential. But when a neuron is excited via a stimulus, the cell membrane is depolarized. The sodium-potassium pumps on the cell membrane are stimulated, resulting in a flow of sodium ions into the neuron. This is known as action potential. Neurons are able to communicate without touching each other. This is possible via the use of nerve impulses. When a neuron receives an impulse, the calcium gates in the axon terminal open. The release of the calcium ions causes the vesicles of acetylcholine in the axon terminal to fuse with the cell membrane and release the neurotransmitters into the gap between the sending neuron's axon terminal and the receiving neuron's dendrites. The gap is known as the synapse. The neurotransmitter acetylcholine binds to the receptors on the dendrites, triggering action in the sodium-potassium pumps. Depending on the neurotransmitter, the impulse will either be passed on or inhibited.
Okay. Bet you didn't know that.
I didn't.
Yeah. All right, take a seat, hon.
Do you have any idea what she's talking about?
No. Our patient knows more about the nervous system than we do.
We should probably do some research.
Agreed.
One eternity later.
I did some research and I found out a lot about the central nervous system. It conducts motor information from the brain to the skeletal muscles, the cardiac muscles, the smooth muscles, and the glands. And it also processes sensory inputs and triggers motor outputs.
Neurons can be categorized into three types: sensory neurons, motor neurons, and interneurons. Sensory neurons allow us to receive information from the outside world through our senses. The sensory neurons evoke the sensation of touch, pain, vision, hearing, and taste. These are usually present in the sensory organs like the eyes, inner ear, and so on, which send the signals to the spinal cord and the brain. Interneurons communicate and connect with each other and represent the majority of neurons in our brain. They allow us to think, see, and perceive our surroundings. Motor neurons are neurons that receive impulses from the spinal cord or the brain and send them from the muscles, causing muscular contraction, and these also affect the gland secretion.
And then the peripheral nervous system consists of the somatic branch and the autonomic branch. Autonomic. The somatic is voluntary and it controls skeletal muscles and external sensory organs like the skin. And the autonomic is involuntary and it controls the involuntary muscles like the smooth and cardiac muscles. And then the autonomic can be divided into the two sections, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic, which we talked about earlier. Okay, so the brain is an important part of the central nervous system. Of course, the brain is divided into many different parts that have different functions. The cerebrum is in charge of the memory and intelligence, and the different lobes like the olfactory, the temporal, the parietal, and the occipital are important for sensory reception. And then there's the midbrain, which connects the forebrain to the hindbrain, and then the hindbrain consists of the pons, medulla oblongata, and the cerebellum.
The brain is protected by many layers. First is the skin, next is the skull, And lastly are the three layers known as the meninges, which include the dura mater, arachnoid, and pia mater.
And the pons relays information from the cerebral cortex to the cerebellum. That's things like nerve impulses from the eyes and touch receptors. And then the medulla controls respiratory functions, cardiovascular reflexes, and gastric secretions. The cerebellum manages posture and movement. And this is where the brain and spinal cord both have white matter and gray matter.
That's all for today.
Aren't you something to admire? 'Cause you shine on something like a mirror, and I can't help but notice you reflect in this heart of mine.